And the argument also is kind of null and void to me anyway, because it's just like, what sometimes it's just like, what are we even talking about? Like, this car makes 3,000 horsepower, is running low sixes. Of course it has some aftermarket parts in it. Like, who fucking cares? Like, it's just, yes, the stock block thing, it gets thrown around a lot just because people like to argue. But it's cool. Like, I don't take anything away from it, being that, it's a cast deal.
Do you get a lot of heat on that?
We get heat on everything.
Oh,
like, you know how it is. Like, when you're doing well, people want to do that. But again, at the end of the day, it's cool. Like, having that stock block doesn't win me anything. It's not like...
Guys, we just wrapped it up with Brett Lasala. If you're new to the channel, make sure you like and subscribe, comment who you guys want on the next podcast. Stay tuned, because we're gonna find out on the episode if he's gonna race Cletus again. If you want the latest merch, make sure you check out gohardpodcast.bigcartel.com. Thank you. Peace. Welcome back to Go Hard Podcast. I'm your host, Noel. Guys, we're out here. We're in Florida. We had a lot of Ford guys on the podcast now. Had a lot of Coyote guys, specifically the Coyote platform. A lot of S550 guys. They're pushing hard the Coyote platform, doing crazy numbers. But we got the king of the Coyote. He's pushing the limits on the Coyote. You've seen him win FL2K, Texas 2K, Sick Week. He's won many trophies, pushing the Coyote for the past 10 years. Is that correct?
Yeah.
For the past 10 years, right?
Right, yeah. I started in 2014 with a Coyote. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Guys, we're out here. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you like and comment who you guys want on the next podcast. We might come out here again in Florida. It's amazing.
And you landed in Tampa. That's a nice airport, so you can see clear water and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's nice. It looks beautiful. So on today's podcast, we're going to talk about Brett Lasala, his car, obviously, where he started, the future for him. Hopefully he can maybe call out Cletus again, see how that goes. But guys, without further ado, let's welcome Brett Lasala, man. Tell us, man, how do you feel right now? You're at the top of the top. You just went 390s in the car.
Yep.
Pushing the Coyote platform, crazy. The guys I've had on the podcast, they said, they're a big fan of yours. Most of them said that. I think most of them said that. But, how do you feel right now at the forefront, pushing that Coyote, being the pioneer, the pioneer of the Coyote platform right now?
It's awesome, man. I never imagined I would be in this position, but I work every day. The faster this car gets and the more races we win, the more people and cars and combos we have, gunning for us. And I'm a competitive person by nature, so obviously we want to stay on top, per se. So I work on this car almost daily. If it's not physically working on it, it's planning for the next race, for the next event, for the next step of the car, improving it, and we're not stopping anytime soon. We're not done. We're gonna keep pushing.
Right. Yeah. So we're gonna start off, guys, with the basic questions, and then we're gonna ramp up to the more aggressive questions. But just like how he ramps up when he's taking off, he leaves soft, and then the guys think they're taking him, but then he just slingshots him and, you like reel him in,
You're talking about Texas on that deal.
Yeah. That's how we're going to come. We're going to go hard today. For my channel, how did you get started into cars? And was the S197 your first car you built?
Yeah, I mean, basically got started in cars probably the way a lot of people did. My dad was kind of into hot rods. I was 14, 15 years old. We started working on his car. We rode dirt bikes and four-wheelers and stuff like that. Got into high school, and I was just, naturally attracted to cars and hot rodding per se. My first hot rod car was actually in high school. It was a Mustang. It was a 1990 Fox body. It had nitrous on it, and basically worked on the car all the time that I could. I went to school in high school, and then I also worked in a shop. Like I had like OJT where I got out of school early because I was in technical training for automotive in my high school, and so I started working at a shop when I was 16, and then I was all in. I was getting a paycheck, and I had my car, so paycheck went into the car, and we were racing it. If you want to call it racing, it was pretty slow back then, but we were all slow, so it was racing.
Yeah.
It was a hatch. Yeah, it was a 90 GT hatch. It was.
Was that your favorite? The hatch?
Not really. It just kind of worked out. I was actually kind of grew up a Chevy guy. Like my dad, the car we built was a 70 Camaro with a big block 454 that we took out of his car that he actually owned the engine since high school. It was his high school car. He still has the car, the Camaro that we built when I was 14.
Yeah.
And it was like...
That's right. Hold on. He started off with Chevy. I just got to say it like that. He started off with Chevy. He knows the sauce now.
It came up last year at Real Street. Me and Jay were working on this older car, and I knew the firing order still, like for the Chevy. He just looked at me like, "How did you know that? You're a Ford guy."
It's great.
It has just stuck with me, And then I had a couple of my first car, and I had a truck, some kind of beater cars. My first car I wanted to do something with. I wanted a Camaro. I was gonna buy a 4th gen Camaro.
Damn.
And at the time they were like $5,000 to buy a used one, And my neighbor had this Mustang for sale, and it was $3,000. And that was all I could afford at the time, And the cars were similar, horsepower and time goes, So I bought that because it was cheaper, and turns out it was cheaper and easier to make go fast. And then now I'm a Ford guy. But I like all cars. Fast is fast. If it's a Honda, if it's a GTR, I'm not really that brand loyal like a lot of people are. I don't have Ford on my back, or Coyote. But I like horsepower, I like engines. I fell into the Ford thing kind of accidentally, per se.
Yeah.
And just kind of stuck with it. Yeah.
Oh, if you can go back to building the Mustang.
Sure.
Racing.
Yeah, so raced the Mustang, it ran 11s, I think, with the nitrous. It was pretty basic kind of setup. I was just working at the shop, paying for everything myself. Had that car, then that car got wrecked. Someone pulled out in front of me and hit me. And then I had got another Mustang, kind of similar stuff. And then I think I ended up with another one around that time. I was working. And then around that time, high school was ending, I moved out. So I didn't have a lot of money to spend on race car stuff. So I actually bought a motorcycle. So I had the car, and then I bought a street bike, 04, it was 04 Gixxer. And I started racing that, and I found out that was way cheaper to go fast. That thing was running 9s stock. So so now I'm racing motorcycles because it filled the adrenaline need more than the car did. And to go that fast, it was a lot cheaper.
It was a lot cheaper, but 10 times more dangerous.
I guess I wasn't too concerned with that, because there was plenty of times that me and my friends probably should have, been in worse situation than we were. But I was fortunate enough never to crash that bad. I did crash it once, but it was a very low speed deal with some bad influences and maybe some alcohol involved. But that was
younger age.
Yeah, that was everything was fine. I hurt the fairing on the bike, but I never had any street bike crashes for that. So then I was racing street bikes, and I got into dirt bikes and was racing dirt bikes, and I bought a Lightning actually, and I was towing the motorcycles with the Lightning 02 True Blue Lightning, and then I couldn't help myself, started modifying that, so now I'm racing this truck, and then I'm realizing what are you trying to do racing this 4,600 pound truck? But, and it would blow up because they were horrible engines. And
what was horrible about them? The 5.4.
Well, in its basic environment. So that did have the 5.4. I had rods and pistons. I had a stock blower. I wasn't racing it right. It needed a better blower. So IATs were hot. Tuning for those trucks weren't very good at the time because it was a load-based tune. So no matter what you did on the dyno and stuff, when you get on the street and the truck was so heavy, they would move to a different cell, and they were usually overtimed and too hot. So, I was just pushing it too hard. Just, basically knowing what I know now, maybe the engine could have gone further. Plenty of people have gone further on 4-valve versions of this engine, way further now. Just keep right alongside of this engine.
Right.
But in base form, it made what it make 350 horsepower with a supercharger. You know, so like it's not, you know, today's standards. That's pretty low.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but at the time they had just the SCT handheld programmer for it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like flash tuning.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But then that kind of sparked my interest back into hot rodding cars again. And around the same times, I started working for Mercedes-Benz as a technician.
Nice.
So, you know, I was doing better in life. And I wanted to get another car and start hot rodding another car. And that's when I ended up with the original Snot Rocket. I bought the car in 2014. You know, it was got to have it green, and I bought the car with all intention of putting a turbo on it. Basically, as soon as I bought it, because I saw what the Coyote. There was a few local Coyote cars in South Florida that were running really well with like a stock style transmission, basic turbo upgrades. You know, and the cars are going 9s. There were some 8-second cars already at that time, and I'm like, man, this seems like the ticket. It was a CPR turbo kit. It was my first turbo car, my first turbocharger ever that I owned. So, you know, I bought the bolt-on kit and installed it myself and
Nice.
did all that deal. Yep.
And that was in 2014, 2015?
Yeah, it was like, probably like the end of 14 or so by the time I got the turbo on it and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And who was it tuned by at the time?
It was tuned by Chris Holmes first, and then Cy Lee.
What was the max you were pushing on it, if you could recall?
Yeah, no, I remember it very well because that was my first higher horsepower vehicle, like my first, you know, thing. Like the goal when I first did the deal was like, all right, like I want like because it was a brand new car for me. It was my first time for my first brand new car. Like it was 6 months old. I bought it used, but it's still brand new in a sense, you know, or at least to me it was brand new. So you know, I have this like really nice brand new car, and I knew that I didn't want to end up like this because it can happen quick, you know. So like, you know, my goal was to keep it like stock as could be, and run 10s. And we put the turbo kit on and Chris tuned it. I think we made like 650 or so on ethanol. You know, it was running good. And first time out, it went like 10-20 on like the 18s and like street tires.
Nice.
And I was like, okay, that was way too easy to meet the goal. So now naturally the goalpost moved, and I'm like, well, how fast can we go with it? You know. So then we're putting a drag pack on it. I don't remember the exact time that Chris and Cy, they were working together at the time. We were all, you know, kind of acquaintances through that, you know, so like the tuning kind of switched. And basically we ended up making around 800 horsepower on that stock engine and ran the car in the mid-9s, like 940 I think was my best time with like stock engine. At that time I built the trans. It was, did it myself, like clutches, intermediate shaft was all was available at that time. And tuning, and it was like, you know, Recaro seats, Brembo brake, like the stock. It was a stock car with a drag pack kind of deal, you know, running mid-9s, which then was pretty cool.
Is that on the 6R? Was that on the 6R?
6R80. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it was.
Nice.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, that car, basically, that car, and with the assistance from Daniel Otway at Blue Streak Performance, like we developed most of there's a few other parts when I stopped that the Lunds have helped develop input shaft and stuff, but most of those parts were developed and tested in that car because I refused to take that transmission out, put a Turbo 400 in the car to ruin my stock nice new car, you know. So that was it. I mean, we pushed that trans platform, you know, in the very beginning of it, and I ended up going 7s with that trans, and that's when I decided to make the switch.
Yeah, were you the first one to go 7s on that trans?
I wasn't. So Ken Bajones in the shop CT's white S550 was actually the first to go 7s. Was helping them. I built the transform, but we were both kind of like battling at that time. And we were both close. We both had run like 8.0 a bunch of times. And he was first to the 7s. I did it very shortly after and went a little faster. I think I went 770 or so with that setup. But yeah, like, you know, right in the forefront of that.
So being a pioneer in the 6R80, what have you seen? You've seen it, obviously building it from stock to wild, right?
Yep.
What's the secret of making it that hold that power?
Well, it's the tuning is very important for obvious reasons, and then now the hard parts are available now, where you can keep it a 6-speed. The parts that failed are now available in billet or more clutch holding capacity. But to me, they still have a limit to where, because at some point you're building a race car, right? As much as we all want to say they're street cars, if you got a car you're trying to go sixes in, like it's a race car, right? Like you're working on the car, you're bringing it to a race, you're trailering it to a race, you're racing it, you're trailering it home, you're working on it, kind of deal. That transmission to me, or any of the overdrive transmissions, is more of like literally the dual purpose car. Like I want a car that I'm gonna jump in, I'm gonna take my girl to dinner, we're gonna go cruise around, enjoyable to drive. It drives like a stock car. It's not crazy loud. You don't need to do, like, anyone can get in the car to drive it. It doesn't need an instruction manual to put you or someone in the car to drive it.
Right.
And that's what that trans did for me, was like the car still drove like stock, but then when you raced it, it did what it needed to do and held the power to run a 7. And I think that's kind of the cutoff in a way, to where you're gonna start needing to work on the transmission more. Because no matter what it is, even the transmission in this car, like, you're gonna have to maintain it. You're gonna have to put clutches in it. Like, if you're putting that much power through something, it's gonna need work. But in that low 8-second range or high 7-second range, that transmission can live currently a great life and not really have to do anything to it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the most you pushed it to at the weight you were pushing it to?
Yeah, so that's the other factor, right?
Right, the weight.
So,
yep.
we were in a heavy car because it was all stock. It had 10-point cage in it by then. It was probably 3,400 to 3,500 pounds, relatively heavy, depending on who you're asking. We were making,
compared to this one now, right?
Yeah, right. Like, everyone, heavy's different for everyone, depending on what you're racing.
That's
if it's
true.
a truck or a new Mustang or whatnot. Like,
Trackhawk or something.
A Trackhawk. But we were making 1,600. I think we ended up close to 1,800 on that trans in those ET ranges, and with that weight of the car, and that was like a good, happy spot for it. It's gotten better. Like Cody and stuff, like, there's cars in the mid 7s when the transmissions are living, because there's just some better parts available now than when I stopped it. But like, that's a good, like, kind of happy spot for it, where you're gonna be able to, like, go rounds. Because if you have a car that fast, you're gonna want to race it. And to race a car, you need to be able to go rounds, right? Like, you need consistency. You need to not have a failure every third round, kind of deal. And that's where you got to kind of make the decision, like, all right, do I want a car to drive on the street, or do I want a car to race? Or do I want one that does both? So there's, at some point, you're going to give up something for the other.
Right. Is that, we spoke about this earlier, but you're going rounds and rounds and rounds, like at Texas 2K, right? Is that why you kind of held back a little bit, not push the car so much to go rounds and rounds? Yeah,
at TX2K for sure. Like, when we show up to a race, like, the reason I built this car, when I decided to sell my other car and build this car, was to build a car that was deadly consistent and that could win races. Like, my goal was to win races. It wasn't an ET. A fast ET is a byproduct usually of winning a race. My focus was the competition,
right?
To go to these events, win these events, and that was it. That's why I wanted to build the car. So when I go to an event, my goal is to beat the other guy next to me. If it's in qualifying, it's to qualify good. So, basically, we all know now, if we show up to a race, generally, what everyone's going to run within a few numbers. There might be someone you don't know, but then you find out. You kind of know how fast you need to go for that weekend to be competitive. So, like, if, for instance, Texas, we got there, and, first pass, we qualified number 1. I don't even remember what it ran, 660, something like that. And then all through qualifying, no one really got super close to us. There was a couple slower, cars close, but not fast enough. So we didn't even run the car that much harder in qualifying, because every time you run this thing, like, it's not easy to go that fast. It looks easy, but, like, it's still a lot of horsepower and a lot of things that can go wrong on that pass. Like, it's all a few, you're burning fuses everywhere. Everything has a certain amount of runs before it fails. There's certain things that you don't know that can happen. So if I don't need to run it that hard, then I won't. So Texas, we qualified there. Each round we raced, kind of knew how fast the other car was. I put enough tune-up in it to cover the other car, and kind of just, kept it in that realm.
I believe the Lunds went like 660s though.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, we ended up going. Did they go 660 in Texas? I don't really remember. I think we ended up going 640s in eliminations,
Okay.
or maybe we qualified with 640. I honestly don't remember exactly
Yeah.
what we qualified.
So many races, so many events.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
That one, like I don't remember the exact ET that
Yeah.
we qualified with, but yeah, it was somewhere in the mid sixes. It might have been a 40.
Yeah.
Might have been a 640.
Guys, we're talking about quarter mile times, not the eighth mile. Just want to clear that.
Yeah, sorry. I'm a little numb to it now because we have so many laps on
Yeah.
the car and so many races.
Let's get into the Snot Rocket, man. Obviously, it's great you called it the Snot Rocket, right?
Yeah.
Is there another story behind it of why you called it Snot Rocket?
No, man, the name originated from the first car. Like I was at work, I was at Mercedes, and me and Justin and PJ we were hanging out, and we were everyone names cars, and
Yeah.
we were kind of joking around, and it kind of like it was like kind of our joke. But then, as the car got faster, the car got more popular, and before I knew it, it kind of took off, and then like it was the Snot Rocket.
Yeah.
And then at that point, like it was too late to go back or pick something less offensive or something not as funny.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like we're doing this for fun. Like
Yeah.
or it's my personal car. Like we're there to have a good time. We go to the track. We're there to hang out. And if you can't laugh about it, then it's not. We take it serious, obviously, but at the same time, it's for fun. So like it was just kept funny. And then by the end of that car, when I got this car, it was just like branded. I've now branded myself with this car and this name and this color, and it was like I got to keep it going. Like I didn't want to like show up with a purple car named something different and then lose
Hulk or something.
right? And then and then lose the fan base that I've built throughout those years. So I just felt like it was a continuation of that car, so I just kept the name.
Okay, so getting the car going turbo, right? Before, when did you actually started like taking it more serious? Actually start putting way more money into it?
Man, it happened when I moved to Tampa.
Okay.
So I was living in Fort Pierce, Florida at that time. And then in 2015, I moved to Tampa, still working for Mercedes. And on this coast, there was way more fast cars, more knowledgeable people, and you kind of gravitate towards like the help you have and the people you have, like if you're the only one, then you're kind of doing it yourself. But then like you have this guy, you're pushing each other. Your friend groups are pushing each other. So then pretty quick, it was like rods and pistons. Made 1,000 horsepower. I think we ran mid eights on that. Still on a 6R80.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was sleeve engine. We went down the line all the way, through the upgrade path from stock to this now with that
everything.
Setup. But it's like stock housing, stock rear suspension to upgrading suspension, putting shocks on it, losing some weight here and there. Basically, anything that you would do to a car. Yeah, I mean, there was definitely people faster than me at the time. Justin Jordan was faster. JPC. There was a lot more cars that were more race inspired. I was riding that streetcar thing really hard for like personally, wanting to keep a like stock interior and all that kind of stuff.
What setup did you have when you went maybe sevens on it?
Yeah, so sevens at that point I switched to a twin turbo kit, and that's when I moved to Tampa and I met my good friend now Jim Braun, which we're pretty close now. If anyone knows me, like Jim's always there helping with the car. He's done the fab work on this car. So we built a twin turbo kit for it, started making more power. We went low eights, and then finally broke into the sevens with the 6R80. And at that point, like I said, we were kind of working with Daniel, developing these parts and things like that. So the trans had to come out of the car a lot because we were developing parts and then tuning and things like that.
Right.
And it was to the point where I was like, man, I want to race more and more competitively. And that's when I decided to put an aftermarket trans in the car. And originally I put a Power Glide in it. I went to TX2K for the second time. I went to it with the 6R80. I think it was in 2018. Ended up coming runner-up in that year with it. It was our first time to Texas. Me and Jim went out there. We towed the car on like a double open trailer. All our friends told us we were crazy. It was our first like away race ever. We always just kind of raced in town local things, and we're like, we're going to TX2K, like it's TX2K, Super Bowl.
Super
And we went out there and we were just in awe, like walking around the pits, looking at all the cars, like seeing all the cars that we saw on the internet, that you looked up to, all the bad stuff. Like I remember it like it was yesterday. And
you remember who you seen?
Exactly. All right. Maybe I don't remember exactly like it was yesterday. I remember the feeling, the vibe, like it was yesterday.
Or do you remember like a car that you're like, man, if I can just get to that guy? Or
Well, it was just cars that I looked up to, like the real street cars. You know, Gio was there with the Supra. Remember the Titan car? You know, all the 2J cars that were there. You know, stick shift racing really wasn't as fast as it is now then. And in the street car class that I was in that year, like that was when it was like street. Like, you know, I just ran the 790 prior to that event. And we went out there knowing that we had like a consistent low 8-second car. We qualified well, and one of the dyno speed, Josh's Corvette was there, and they were running like 780s. And I'm like, man, we just don't have enough. You know? And this was my car with single turbo, and I lost in the finals against that car. I tried to guess on the light, and I went red. Just because I knew we didn't have enough to cover him, because it was running like 8.0 all week, and he's running like 7.9s all weekend. And he would, luckily he made a good pass and would have beat me anyway, so it didn't hurt my feelings as bad going red in the finals as it would have if he spun or something. And then that drive home was when we concocted the twin kit. It was like, we need a faster car. To win these races, like I need a car to go 750s. Like all the cars right now, like the fast ones are running 790s. And that progression really hasn't stopped. You know, the ride home, we talked about the twin kit. We built the twin kit. You know, we went a little faster in the 7s, and then ended up going to the Power Glide, like I just said, and leading up to the next year for TX2K, because that was going to be like my big, like do that event again, do better at that event. And we got the Power Glide in it like a couple weeks before the event. Went out there, and it went 730s. And at the time, it was, you know, it still is pretty fast. Like there's still S197s. Like it was built engine, you know, like stock Gen 1 style heads. It had stock cams in it, stock ECU, Power Glide, twin 64s. Car still had full interior, had aftermarket Recaro seats. You know, it was a legit
stock ECU.
Stock ECU.
Okay.
Yeah, at the time it was one of the faster stock ECU. Like this is 2019.
Damn.
You know, stock ECU car. You know, running low 7s.
That's crazy. That's crazy, honestly, because you're pretty much stock ECU, stock. You know, they have cars now that are, you know, aftermarket ECU. They're getting low 7s, and but it's stock. Can you explain stock Coyote block? Because I feel like there's a misconception. A lot of people on the internet say, "Well, it's not a stock block if it has sleeves," right? If you can just give us more in depth of that.
Well, it's an interpretation, I would say. The internet's interpretation from the comments are most people that aren't really like hardcore racers, and to them a stock block is, you know, that which kind of came from the LS stuff. When they say stock block, they're talking about like a stock short block, you know, even though then it's got rod bolts and it's all this kind of stuff, you know, and no doubt, like if you're trying to say like your block is stock, then, you know, I guess anything you do to it at that point, aftermarket, like a main stud would make it not stock. So, you know, there's extreme ends of that. In a racing term, when you go to an event or something, it means a stock block is just meaning that it's not an aftermarket block. So it's not an aftermarket cast block. It's not an aftermarket billet block.
Billet block, right.
You know, naturally, if you're racing a car, the engine's been modified and been built. It kind of goes without saying in that sense. So, you know, the term is just bad because it can go both ways. And then, you know, a lot of people post about it to get the interaction and the involvement and the people arguing back and forth.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's a factory cast block. It's been sleeved, so it's been modified. It's not in its stock form, but it is a Ford production block.
Right. So what you're saying is you can go to Ford and get that block right from Ford.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, the block that's in this car was ordered from the Ford parts department.
Right. And then you can throw sleeves in it.
You know, fast forward, they cut it for the aftermarket sleeve, put the aftermarket sleeve in, and that's it. It's untouched after that.
So, guys, it's pretty much it's on a stock block, just re-sleeved, you know. And I mean, obviously, there's more to it, right?
Yeah, I mean, and
stock crank as well, right?
Not right now. We did up until this year. We ran a stock crank. Like the video made 2,900 horsepower. All the races that we won last year, it went 630s on the stock crankshaft. All that stuff. We never broke a crank. We got to a point where it was gonna start to fail. It started noticing it flexing. So we went ahead and put a billet crank in it. And the argument also is kind of null and void to me anyway, because it's just like, sometimes it's just like, what are we even talking about? Like, this car makes 3,000 horsepower, is running low sixes. Of course it has some aftermarket parts in it. Like, who fucking cares? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Like it's just, yes, you know, the stock block thing, it gets thrown around a lot just because people like to argue, but it's still, it's cool. Like, you know, I don't take anything away from it, being that, you know, it's a cast deal.
Do you get a lot of heat on that?
We get heat on everything.
Oh,
like,
okay,
you know how it is. Like,
yeah.
You know, when you're doing well, people want to do that. But again, at the end of the day, it's cool. Like, you know, having that stock block doesn't win me anything. It's not like, you know, what we're doing it because that's what I want to do. This is my car. I built this car for me.
Right.
Like, you know, making the engine better over the years and making more horsepower has been something me and Joe, owner of Fast Forward, have been working at for a long time. So it's cool to kind of push that envelope. And right now, like I was doing with the other car, with like fighting, keeping it full interior and all that stuff, I'm doing the same thing with this car, with keeping it in drag and drive trim, like being able to drive the car.
When you were going sixes, right? Was it hard going from sevens to sixes? Was it like, if you can give us a more in depth on that, like go from sevens to sixes? Because a lot of Coyote guys I had on, they said it was hard going from eights to sevens, right?
Yep.
In your case, it's sevens to sixes. How hard was that going?
Yeah, every time you get to one of those barriers, it seems like it's further away.
Yeah.
The faster ET you have on a car, the harder it is to make up time. Like, it just comes, a lot of things come into factor a lot more. From that weekend, it went 730s, and we're like, oh man, the thing went 730s like first time out. Like, it's gonna be great.
Yeah.
It was probably 2 years before it went sixes.
Damn. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That was a lot of testing, huh?
It was a lot of testing, and I put in a Turbo 400 in it. Went to an aftermarket ECU. Now we backtracked some through there. Like,
so why go from the Glide to the Turbo 400?
Depending on who you talk to, they have different opinions, but it's gear ratio. So gear ratio is free horsepower. So now we have 3 gears.
Now you have 3 gears plus the lockup, right?
Well, no, this car, it was Turbo 400 with no lockup. So this has a lockup. The other car was a standard Turbo 400 without lockup. Okay. So with more gear ratio, you're able to, you know, if you can put down that power, you have a mechanical advantage over not having that gear. So the more gears can be better in a lot of ways. Got you.
And so, how if you go back to from sevens to sixes, right?
Yeah.
2 years trying to push that to go sixes. What was your first time you hit sixes?
First time I hit sixes was Mod Nationals 2000, I think it was 21.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what time was that?
Went 698.
Okay. And then if you just give us like how much did it weigh at the time?
Yeah, it was,
3,400
and change. It was still like, that car was all stock panels, stock glass, roll up windows, like full interior. Like, I kept that with that car that whole time.
Right.
When it went sixes, I kind of just felt like I was done. Like, felt complete with that car. Like, it was gonna take a lot to go faster than that with that chassis, and that's when I decided to build this car.
Okay. So then, my next question is, what made you build like a low, almost 5-second car, right? Like, what did it take? Because you're hitting 690s, so and you're at 3,400ish, and power, what did it make at the time?
2000.
2000. Okay. So then now, I mean, obviously it takes a shit ton more horsepower, right?
Yeah. 1,000 more.
And then you lost a lot of weight on the car.
Yep.
Right. So, what did you give us your knowledge of, and what did you learn of going from 690s to 6.1? Did you hit 6.1 recently, right?
620. 626 is my fastest.
626. And then 399.
And then 399, which We didn't get the quarter mile slip on that, but it probably went 650s letting off on that pass.
Yeah, damn. All right, so if you could just give us the rundown of going from 690s to 620s.
Well, it was all just progression. When we built this car, it was like 650 was probably like the end goal. And we got there pretty quickly. So then it was like finding more efficiency, finding more horsepower, and like just kept the ball rolling one number at a time to where we are now.
Yeah. So okay, so that if you're in your head, you're like, I want to go 650s, right? What do you think you're doing different than all the other guys?
It's a good question. Well, it is, myself, I work on this car all the time, which isn't probably different than a lot of people. I have a really good group of friends that surround the car that help make it go fast. Like Joe Spetter, who helps tune the car. Me and him became friends kind of at the end of the other car and beginning of this car that I met through Jay. And he's brilliant with that stuff. He's been a leading of turbocharged small tire racing from the beginning. I mean, pretty much him and his dad, Turbo People, invented turbo small tire racing in the 90s. So going off their knowledge, Joe with the engine program, making more, being able to make more horsepower, not being afraid to try things in an educated way. Like, we don't just go throw stuff at the wall. Like, we're like, all right, let's try this. And then being able to put all that together and just keep evolving the car and changing it a lot, the little things, and putting it together. The ECU system on the car, it just all works together in like a perfect harmony that I maybe not a lot of people have that.
Okay. Do you notice a difference of, do you have these, this goes to the Mustang community, right? S550s, S197s, you see them running and they're pushing, they're trying to, they're competing against, they're trying to get the number, right? Low sixes, mid sixes. Do you see maybe the car and you're like, man, I was going through that issue at that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you notice that?
Well, it's a lot of issues. Unfortunately, you've never gone, most people, like, you haven't gone as fast as you've gone until you've gone that.
Right.
And then after you've done that, you got over that hurdle, it's just normal.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, you can't put that there. It needs to be over here.
Right.
But you learn that lesson the hard way. Took months, a lot of money to figure that out.
Okay.
And that is true from this bumper all the way to that bumper. So it's a lot of little things. There's no one thing that can make a car fast.
Right. And another this is another touchy question that I hear and I see a lot, right? A street car.
Sure.
If you can explain to us what your opinion or your version of a street car, because like I said, there's a lot of people that say it's not really a street car because it doesn't have AC.
Sure.
It's not really a street car because you can't go to the gas station and put 93 or 85, right? It runs on the 85, right?
Currently it's on methanol.
Okay, methanol.
We went mid sixes on ethanol.
On drag week, you ran 85 to.
No, we ran 93 pump gas.
Oh, 93. Okay, 93 pump gas, and then when you got to the track, you switched it to. Right. So if you can give us your version on a street car.
Well, as you know, that's probably the most controversial subject on the internet, street car. And basically, if you're at the racetrack, entered in a racing event, doesn't matter what it is. You signed up for a specific class on a specific rule set, and you're racing. You're there to race to win a race. So if you don't show up with enough car for that event, that's kind of on you. You want to make the excuse that it's not a street car because it doesn't have AC, but it fits the rule set, right? The problem is there's no good definition of a street car because it's an opinion.
Yeah, right.
There's not. The problem is the class is called street car. Like, that's just the racing class that they call it, right? That's the name of the racing class.
Right.
So the fact that you brought a car that you consider a street car to a racing class, racing event, and you're mad you're not winning, isn't necessarily the race promoter's fault or the faster guy than you's fault. Like, you didn't bring enough car. Now they're doing a good job of tightening the rules up to try to keep that class at that like 70690 mark, which I agree it should stay at. Like, there just needs to be a faster class for the guys that are going faster to race in, like Extreme 28 and that kind of deal. But going back to kind of what I said earlier, like if you go in Texas, we kind of walk through the streetcar. You know, the class is called streetcar in Texas, streetcar elite. They break it into subclasses. So if you're not that fast, you can qualify down. And you look at the cars in the class, and you know, out of 4 or 5 of them, we had I don't know how many more times street miles on this car than they had on their cars. You know, the people are building cars for this racing class, right?
Yeah.
They're driving them into the trailering it to the track, racing the car, putting it back in the trailer, bringing it home, working on it to make it better. Maybe they drive it to the drive-through one time and post it on Instagram so they can say streetcar.
Yeah.
But, like, it's a race car.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? It fits the rules for streetcar class, and they're racing it in that class because that's the events we want to go to. That's the events that get a lot of publicity. Like, it's fun, right? But I don't know that you'll ever get a clear definition. Like, I don't know that I've ever called this a street car. Ever. Because to me, it's a car I built to race.
Yeah.
But it was built to race and also drive. That's why I do dragon drives. Like,
right.
You know, beginning of this year, Sick Week, like we ended up winning the whole thing, even over the Pro Mod class. And the car drove, it was like 980 miles. So, but that equated to 34 hours, right? So
was that against Jeff Lutz?
Yeah, we ended up against Jeff Lutz. It was against everyone, but he was like the 1 and 2.
Right,
it was me and him. We made 10 passes on 5 days, Monday through Friday. Made 10 passes on the car, all 640 or faster, and drove the car 34 hours sitting in the driver's seat, me and Jim driving the car.
Damn.
Like, there's not a lot of cars in any of the streetcar classes that can necessarily even do that.
Yeah.
In the same trim, you know?
Yeah.
So to me, like entering an event like Texas with the rule set it was there, like, you know, I feel like, you know, like, okay, like I fit the rule set for that race. Is my car a lot faster than maybe a lot of people's? You know, it was.
That is very opinionated, the street car, because you ask one person, like you said, right?
Yeah.
You ask one person what's a street car, and they're like, oh, it's this. And then somebody else is, what's a street car? And then, oh, it's this, right?
Yeah.
So you that is like going to be an argument
forever. And that's what drives, you know, the people, different companies like to promote that question to get controversy. But
right.
If you have to stop and make a post that you're driving your car to prove to people that you drove your car, like to dinner or whatever, like it's not, right?
Yeah.
Like,
you know, it'd be funny if
that's kind of the line in the stand. Like you see the people with the groceries in the trunk,
yeah,
or at the drive-through post. You know, that's them kind of defending their street car.
Yeah, it'd be funny if you see them getting off the trailer, then doing a, you know, going on the drive-through, then putting it back on the trailer.
Well, and the fact of the matter is, most of these cars can drive.
Yeah,
it's just when you make them more and more a race car, they're not enjoyable to drive.
Yeah.
You got expensive suspension, wheels, like you don't want to hit bumps, you don't want to sit in traffic, like you want to get in the truck, turn on the AC, you know?
Yeah. Do you enjoy driving this one?
Not really. The first day or so is cool because you get in this thing and like it's a radical car, right? Like the seat is real low and back, like you can't really see much. Like it's got headlights, but all the windows are tinted. Like you know, at first you're like, yeah, this is it's cool in the sense that like you're driving this 3,000 horsepower car. You just put pump 93 in it.
Yeah.
And you just start it up and it just runs like a stock engine. Like we're not lashing valves or changing things like a lot of the big engine guys are. And like that aspect of it is like, all right, this is really cool. But by hour 30 into driving on day 4 or day 5, like you don't ever want to see this car again. You want to get out of this thing.
Yeah. Let me go in my pickup.
Yeah,
let me drive the pickup
for real. It's loud and it's like a tone that you can't ever really escape. So it's just kind of pounding your eardrums.
Yeah. You know, another controversial question is a lot of people they think it could be cheating, you know, to get and like you said, and I can agree, you know, when you're making a lot of noise and your car or yourself is doing really great, right?
Sure.
You're gonna get a lot of backlash. That's just how the world works,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And so my question to you is, what would they suspect of you cheating if on the outside looking in, right?
Sure.
What would they suspect of you cheating of going that fast?
Well, I think it's maybe not as much cheating as maybe they think I'm being dishonest about something
Okay.
with the combo.
Right.
That's why the stock block argument comes up. But that's why, like, you know, you go on my YouTube and like we take that engine apart, like completely apart on camera for the same, like we never saw it before the camera saw it, you know.
Right.
And you know, we don't really owe that to anyone. You know, that's how I feel. Like, you know, like I'm pretty transparent with a lot of things on my car, and then some of the stuff I keep to myself just to be competitive. You know,
Right.
but I like to do it because I like to grow the sport, and it's part of the reason, you know, why I do it, to, you know, help the sport as a whole. You know, the companies that, you know, I'm friends with, the companies that I work for. You know, it's a big ecosystem in that sense, but. As far as like class cheating goes, if you're at a race and has a specific set of rules, you know, we've been protested numbers of times at different races. Like, if you're a fast guy in the class, they're going to try to reason kick you out of the class. Like, why wouldn't they? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if I thought a car was illegal and they were beating me, I'd probably protested too. You know, so like I don't fault anyone for that, but. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's hard to believe. Like, we still, like, everyone that's involved with the car, we sit back and like, holy crap! Like, we just went $399, 188 almost, 187.
Crazy.
Yeah. And with this car, that I could have drove home that night.
Beating pro mods too, man. That's crazy.
Right, being pro. So yeah, so I mean, in a sense, it is a little unbelievable.
Yeah.
So then you want to like, okay, maybe something's not adding up. Like,
Yeah.
this guy's lying, but this is it. This is her.
If you want to find out, come to TB and Breaks now.
Yeah, right. No, that's it. Or come to the. We race all over the place. Like, we have so many people trying to beat us all the time. Like,
Yeah.
we're just out there. We're just out there doing it, man.
Having fun.
Yeah.
Man.
Right, and winning is fun. So we're gonna keep trying to win races.
Would there be a race soon of you and Cletus again?
Well, he's building another car.
Yeah.
I don't think he's gonna race Mullet again. I think he's trying to get another car ready for maybe World Cup.
Damn. Ooh. He's coming after you, man. Honestly.
Oh no, it is.
He got the bow and arrow right there.
Yeah, you know, and me and him are friends, so it's all good. But
But you need guys like that to be competitive. You know, like that's a sport.
It
you know
drives
what I mean?
the sport, drives innovation. It drives, like, I feel like we've pushed a lot of people past their comfort zone with what they think a car can do, and it's awesome.
Like this other guy said, you're about a year and a half ahead than most of these guys. Honestly, you know.
Yeah, and we've felt like that for a good while, even before this car. Like I was always trying things or pushing things that to a level they haven't been pushed for. I've always tried to be ahead in that sense.
Can we talk about the car and if you can explain the setup it has right now?
Yeah.
As far as the block, the rear, tire size, turbos, the weight. Just not too much sauce, right?
No, that's fine. That's all stuff I've talked about before.
Right.
Yeah.
Just give us a rundown on it.
Yeah. So Fast Forward Racing Engines, Coyote. Hit my mic. That we talked about. So it's a Ford block sleeve, aluminum rods, billet crank, GT350 heads, comp cams, Plasma Man intake, Plasma Man air-to-air intercooler, and 8385 precision turbos, next gen.
And the rear?
The rear, it's a fabricated 9-inch, so it has a 4-link. It's not the native suspension for the car. It's a parallel 4-link with it's a race rear end, fabricated 9-inch deal.
Is there a reason why you want the GT350s?
The
heads? Yeah.
Yeah, so they have a taller valve and they have a better port. They flow more. So you can get more lift on the cam with a taller valve because you have more control of the valve, and the head flows more. So
the only aftermarket on the heads would be valves?
Yep.
Could you say valves?
Yeah, valves and the springs.
Springs,
yep.
Right. And it most likely is ported, right?
Yeah, so they're ported. It's not real aggressive though, because the ports are close to the water jackets. So if you get too big, they'll crack.
Got you. So the heads are pretty much kind of already maxed out then. But
Uh,
it's still a off the. I mean, you can say it is an off the shelf GT350 head, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Fast Forward definitely does their love to them. You know,
Yeah.
they go in and they work the chamber and they do some stuff, but pretty close to a factory head.
Any reason why? I mean, if you could tell us the reason why you went with the low mount turbo setup, because I see a lot of S550s and Mustangs at 2K running, and they have the top mount setup.
So for them, it's a packaging thing. It's not easy to put a turbo down here, especially with like more of a stock style front end car.
Oh, got you.
Next thing is getting the oil back. So you need a scavenge pump. This car has a drive sump. Get the oil back because they're so low.
Right.
The benefit of having them low is the center of gravity, the weight. Because no matter how you have a fast car, it's going to want to wheelie.
Right.
So the higher you have the weight up, the more it's going to want to come back. So you want get the center of gravity as low as you can,
Got you.
and then forward as we can, so we can get air to them.
Yeah. That's really unique because I mean most of the Mustang guys, you see them and they have the top mounts.
Yeah, you've seen a lot of cars like this was one of the earlier cars of this chassis with the low mounts, and I'd say over the past year since we've been racing this car, you've probably seen a few of the faster ones start to put the turbos down low.
Yeah.
Because they see it works.
Guys, if you're out there, maybe you want to change the setup. I don't know. I'm playing.
But it's still magic. It's not a magic button. It's not like, if I
Yeah.
put the turbos there, my car's gonna be fast.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
It it's still kind of like it's a packaging thing.
Yeah.
But weight distribution is important when you're trying to go as fast as we go.
What about Jeff Lutz again? Will you ever get a run with him again?
Well, I don't know. So we went to that sick week this year, and last year we raced that event. We won modified, which was our class, which is like the second class under unlimited, and we got the third overall, the average, because it's an average race of your 5 days. This year going into it, we knew we had some heavy hitters in modified, but the goal was to win modified again. And then in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, if we can win the overall, like it's never been done from a sub class. Not from the unlimited class, the big tire cars.
Yeah.
Day 2, we're on the road after Bradenton, and we get a call that Lutz hurt his engine or something happened, and he only handed in a 690. First day he went 615. That put us either tied or ahead of him by like one number on day 2 for the average, because we had went 620 and 630. And I was like, Jim, this is our shot.
Yeah.
If these guys, like, once the way the average works, the later in the week you go, like it's hard to make up numbers because you have 4 days or 3 days against you of the average. I was like, we're gonna run this car hard the rest of the week, and if those guys stay around that 615 or slower mark, like we got a chance of beating them. And that's what we did. Like we ran the car the next day. Like I ran it 4 times in Georgia. Like we could have, like the strategy for that race is usually make a good pass and get on the road, because you have 200 plus miles of unknowns ahead of you before you got to race the next day.
Right.
So you try to like save the car in a sense, And it went like 6:30. I'm like, we got to run it again. We got to go faster.
Yeah.
Like ran it again. We're still ahead of them by a little bit, and we got down to that 4th day. We handed in our time in Georgia. And we were ahead. I don't remember the exact numbers, but the way it landed, he would have had to go like a 570 the last day to beat us.
Fuck.
To beat just because of the average. If we stayed on our like 630, high 620 route, I'm like, I don't think he has it in him. So we got on like a 5, like he's been running like low 6s all week, like just to clip off a 570. Like the car's been 5s before, but not this week. It hasn't been 5.
Yeah.
So like, it doesn't matter what it did before. Like what it's doing now is what matters.
Yep.
And they were rebuilding the engine again that night, and we got on the road. And then the next morning we got to Orlando, and they weren't there. They ran. I think they needed another part or something for the engine.
Oh, damn.
And they called it quits that night. So at that point, we just needed to run, I think, like a 650 anything, and we won the overall.
Damn.
So that was like, probably that still is like the highlight of anything I've done with this car was to
Really?
to go to that event. we now have the third fastest average of any drag and drive in history of all the drag weeks, all of that stuff.
Wow.
And on a 10-inch tire. Like, this is against all these big tire Pro Mod cars, all these numbers that we're comparing it to. So to have my little Coyote car on a 275, like, be up there with it, even to like race alongside Jeff Lutz. Like, he's like the OG drag and drive guy, you know, Street Outlaws, all that stuff. Like, it was really freaking awesome.
Yeah. We're gonna get into Street Outlaws in a minute, but how far is your car away from being a Pro Mod?
Well, so I mean, the definition of a Pro Mod, it's a racing class, right? Street car is a racing class, but Pro Mod is a very defined set of rules for their class. So depending on what year it is, but Pro Mod didn't start as a real car. It's a full tube chassis, and it's an extended wheelbase, an extended length with a carbon body with an extended body. You know, it's a car specifically designed for racing.
Right.
So like, this really isn't close to that at all.
Okay. That's the answer I wanted to hear.
Yeah, you know, what's the definition? Like, anyone faster than you is a Pro Mod or something like that. Like, obviously it's a car that was built for racing. It has a lot of stuff, but it's still like, this started life as a factory Mustang. It's still stock quarters, jams, rockers, you know, all of that stuff. The VIN, like, it's all of that, strut towers, front frame rails, all that deal is still the Mustang, still stock wheelbase, stock body.
I seen you competing in the Street Outlaws. I mean, competing in the Street Outlaw show.
Yep.
How was that experience like?
It was cool, man. Like, we got invited through Jared Holt, who was in Oklahoma, who was friends with those guys. And I worked at Real Street, and I was working on Jared's car. And he's like, hey, they got this thing. It's going to be blacktop, like legit, has to be street car, like interior kind of stuff, you know. And we want you to bring your Mustang out. And it was right when I had sold the car, and I was building this car. I didn't really have a car. So we brought my good friend Mike Moretti. He had S197 Mustang. He was already playing around on the street with it. So it was like, hey, man, like, let's go. We're going to Oklahoma.
Was it that blue one?
Yeah, the blue one.
Okay.
And so, you know, Jared's car was in Orlando. I had Jared's car. We were getting it ready. We went out some roads, did some testing. Really didn't know how fast we needed to go, you know, because there wasn't a lot of communication on that. It was like a team deal. Jared had put together like a team of people.
Right.
And, man, we went out there. You know, we went testing a couple nights out there, went, filmed the show. Mike lost his first round, won his second round. Jared won his round, and we did good. It was cool. It was fun.
Anything like, maybe would you compete with this in this car?
I'm not real interested in doing street racing or stuff with this car, just because the chances of crashing or having someone crash into you are so high, so dangerous.
Okay.
I don't want to lose the car. Like, I can't replace it. If I lost this car tomorrow in a crash, like, if I was okay and I didn't get hurt, like, I don't have another one.
Yeah.
I can't just build another one from scratch. You know what I mean? So, like, to me, it's not worth it to put that much risk out to do it. And something this fast on the street, it's just really dangerous. That's all there is to it. Like, it's cool, no doubt. Like, when you're out there racing on the street and it's sketchy as hell, like, it's probably really exciting.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not looking to risk that much.
Yeah. What would it cost to build this car right now as it sits?
That's a good question. I've been asked it a bunch of times. I don't know the exact answer to the question, because I've done all of the work myself on the car, besides a few odds and ends that I don't do. Like, I bought the transmission, Joe does the engines, Jim, my friend, helped me with the fab work. But like, if you were to bring a stock Mustang or not to have a car.
So okay, so without labor, right?
So to add the parts up? I don't know. I'd have to add it up. I mean, 100? Probably 100.
Really?
Parts. Yeah. I mean, you gotta, there's a lot of misconceptions about some of the parts in the car. Like, I hear people like, oh, it's got a lock-up trans. It's, you know, that's $30,000 transmission. And it's like, no, it's not. It's a $18,000 transmission, you know, retail. You know, converters probably $5,000 retail. Again, this is all retail things. So,
right.
You know, and this car does good. So I'm fortunate to be able to get discounts on parts and things from companies that I help advertise with. You know, how the ecosystem we talked about before, right?
Yep.
The engine, I think if you needed to build this engine intake dry sump, like just how you see it sitting right here is probably 50. So yeah, so we're at what were we at, like 75 there. ECU, PDM, that stuff. Probably 10 turbos, the turbo kit. Yeah, so I mean, you can get to 100 pretty quick.
One of a kind turbo kit.
Right. To pay someone to build this, like this is all really good components. Like we made the header flange. We literally Jim, we 3D scanned the head and drew the flanges and had them CNC cut from stainless with EGT probes all in the exact spot. Like we did some pretty trick stuff, but we have access to a lot of neat things and friends in the right places that are excited to do new things that we can get to make stuff. Like when JT made the mount for my oil pump and stuff. Like in anything in life, who kind of always helps that kind of deal. Right. And being surrounded by such great friends and really bunch of badass dudes, like really talented dudes that want to help with it. You end up with some really neat products that you can't buy, like the average person who wouldn't be able to buy.
Like what you're saying is most of the other stuff it's like they thought about it and y'all laid it on the machine, printer, lathe, machine, weld, and y'all made it.
Yeah, I mean you can't, like, pretty much this whole car was made. It's pretty much custom. Like you only can buy a few of the major components. Like you can buy the engine, you can buy the turbos, you can buy the transmission, but you can't put it in a car like this. You have to make all that stuff. And it comes from inspiration, from myself. It's like, man, like, the header flange is always a problem. Like I saw something at PRI or online of something else. It's like, man, it really, we have this problem that we want to fix. How do we fix this problem with warping flanges, with EGT bungs being perfectly in the right spot so your data is accurate. Because it matters, and then like being able to make the turbo kit easy, and then having something that's gonna last because it's in such a horrible environment, and it's like, oh, it needs to be this, it needs to be that. Oh, how do we do that? Clay at Real Street had a scanner, so we can scan the head. It's like, oh man, Pat is like awesome CNC guy. See if he'll make the flanges for us, and that's kind of how it all goes.
I noticed you have, stickers in the back or whatnot. I haven't seen one that says handmade in Florida.
Handmade in Florida?
You should get one like somewhere.
Put that on
handmade in Florida. I think that'd be awesome, honestly, because the way he's talking about it right now, like.
Yeah, and there's a lot of components, and there's a lot of things that don't that people don't know because it doesn't get posted. We make stuff. We're here late. We're doing things, even though we bought a part, we're still modifying or make it work how we want it to make it work. And that's the edge that we have.
So going from the setup, the quarter mile setup to the eighth of mile setup, right? Mm-hmm. And hitting 390s. What was the difference in that setup?
Just gear ratios.
Okay.
So basically, it's hard to gain number, like you said. Like, how hard was it from going 8s to 7s? I'll tell you what, from going 409 to 399 is astronomically faster.
Really?
Yeah, like everything. Like 409 was like, oh, okay, that was pretty cool. Like, did that pretty easy. Then power has to get in sooner, and that's when the car wants to spin or try to flip over. Wheelie. So you have to get over all those hurdles, and it took more power. It took more power sooner. It was it's very difficult. But so looking for numbers at that point, like we're like, it went 409, made 3 passes, it went 407. We're celebrating, like, picked up 200s, and all right, that was good. So the gear ratios lets the car basically top out at the 8th, RPM wise. So and again, the gear ratios, mechanical horsepower, so it's torque multiplication.
Right.
So the more gear ratio you can run and put the power down, essentially more power or torque you have available to accelerate the car. So putting that gear set in the car was, because everything we do is very specific or focused on, efficiency, and we know that there's this on the table and we can gain it by changing that, and then we did it. So now we'll see. The last time we did 8th mile stuff, we went 409, and then we went back to quarter mile trim. We ended up going 410 in quarter mile trim. So like we got, what we learned with the 8th mile setup, we were able to get close to that even with the quarter mile gearing. And I know we'll be able to do the same thing now, in which will just make the car faster to the quarter then.
Would you say you're aiming for 5s at this point? No? I'm sure you got that right a lot.
Yeah, well, it's the next question, But
Yeah.
like to me, like we're far away from that.
Really?
Like we went 626. I'm pretty confident that it has a 619, 618 in it just off of like eighth mile times that we've already been faster to the short track in quarter mile trim.
Yeah.
So that'll translate into that. But, like I said, from going like 409 to 399, like I don't even want to think about what it's going to take right now from going like 626 to 599.
Because I'm sure people. I mean, a lot of people ask you, right?
Oh, right. Yeah. It's
Like-
just like it's the first time you go 850s and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, we're going to go sevens. And you go seven. And like, oh, you're going to run sixes. Like it's just it's just what happens. But like from knowing what it's going to take, like the car is going to have to get 200 pounds lighter and make another 500 horsepower. Like I don't know. I've never been there, so
Yeah.
I don't know the answer. Like I said, you don't really know until you've been there. And right now, looking at it from where we're at,
How about you do this?
yeah,
150 pounds lighter on the car. No, 170
okay,
or 180.
Yeah.
And then me and you probably can lose some weight. Maybe
Sure.
20 pounds on
Yeah,
you,
right.
50 pounds on me. You know. I mean that kind of might might get you there too.
yeah, like that. I mean, if the car got 170, 180 pounds lighter, like it's gonna go 6 O's
Oh, yeah,
probably.
yeah.
And then at that point, maybe we can talk about fives. But like, yeah, I'm not. It's not a goal of mine. How the car sits right now. If we get closer to it, then maybe we'll push for it. But like right now, I don't feel like we're even close to that.
Really.
Yeah.
So, did you ever hit a perfect time at Texas 2K? I mean, a reaction time.
I did in qualifying, but I think that the lights were weird at Texas 2K
Oh, damn.
because the left bottom stage bulb was flickering a lot in a lot of the rounds with the car not in it, and it happened to me on that pass. And it
Yes.
said I went perfect, and I
Yeah.
saw like 5 other people go perfect.
Oh.
And I'm pretty sure it's mathematically impossible for like 5 racers,
Yeah.
5 streetcar racers with rollout to go perfect in
Yeah.
like one event. So like I don't honestly I don't know. I don't know of how accurate that reaction time was.
Yeah.
Because to me when I saw the slip, I was like, "Oh no." Because generally like when I go into my staging routine, it's all real natural. I don't try not to think about anything specifically, so that way every time you race a car, it's just the same.
Right.
Stage the car in the same spot, let go of the button at the same time, and you're just consistent, so you don't have big swings in your reaction time.
Yeah.
And I saw that 000, and I was like, I wasn't even trying. Like I was just doing my normal deal, right? Like if I'm racing someone faster than me, then I go up there like with the mindset like, okay, I need to do better than my usual, which
Yeah.
is 050, 030, which is quick, but it's not like real fast, but it's safe.
Right.
Because like 000 is 1,000th away from being red and losing a race.
Yeah.
So I saw the 000 and I'm like, oh no, like that was way too quick
Yeah.
for not trying. Like you need to make sure you don't lose this event because you red light.
Yeah.
Because like at an event like that, when we have a car that considerably faster or the fastest car there, we a mistake on our end is the easiest way for us to lose. And going red would be a really easy way to lose. So at that point, I was just trying to slow down. I'm like, all right, don't do that again.
How did you find out the other cars went perfect times? Like the other 5 cars?
Well, they
you
kept
said?
announcing it.
Oh.
Like, and he did his best. Like, I think someone did it against me in the left lane. I saw like 2 or 3 other cars, and we go to a lot of races, and there's not that many perfect lights. Like, and if you get a perfect light, it's usually just luck. Like you're trying hard, but there's no one there's some bracket racers that bracket race every day that can do it, right? But
Yeah.
the style of racing that we do and the style of cars that we race with, it's not that easy to do.
Yeah.
You're gonna get lucky maybe, but like you're not like the perfect light kind of deal.
So 0.03, you said 0.03 was your best, right? Like besides that one?
Like ever?
Your best reaction time?
Oh, I don't even know. I don't pay attention.
Yeah,
I don't like keep
yeah.
score of them that
Yeah,
close.
yeah.
Well, the 0.03, the 030, that's like a general. Like typically, if I just go up there and do that, like I'm gonna go 030.
You're good,
Like
yeah.
it's not slow, but it's it's pretty quick.
Yeah. So that leads to my next question. How do you physically feel, or thoughts or your mind when you're going stupid fast in your car, right? And you're staging, you're on the button, like what's going through your head at that moment, Could you recall that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, I've done it a lot, and like we do it.
Oh, we know.
And we
We
do
know.
it in this car a lot. And depending on like where we're at in the weekend, sometimes I need to like refocus because I'm so comfortable in this car because I've made so many passes in it. Like you could probably take away 2 of my senses at any point, and I'm gonna like do the same thing in the car every time because like we're pretty like synced up.
Yeah.
But staging is, I know the car I'm racing, so I know because I watch everyone race throughout the weekend, so I know how they stage, because the staging procedure, like how long they take or whatnot. So that way, I go in around the same amount of time, and there's no weird thing happening there. And then, like I said, I kind of I let go the same time pretty much. I get in, see the light, and go. And then at that point, in like a diagnostic mode, like evaluating the run, like you see cars do stuff and you're like, oh man, it was a good driver, he saved it. You're not necessarily, if everything goes right, you're not really driving these cars at this speed. Like, it's driving itself. It's doing its thing when it's set up right. What you're doing is just reacting to something not going right. Right. So for me in the car, I'm listening, I'm feeling, just waiting for maybe, if it's going to spin, if it's going to do something weird, to be able to react to that kind of situation. Like, and I get back, and I've been with people before, and like I'll tell them the whole run. Like I know like what it did. Oh, it did this shift a little weird. It spun on this shift. It wheelie control, caught it right there. And it's like, oh, did you look at the data log? And I was like, no, we're just like, it slows down. I've had the whole run pretty much. I kind of broke down in my head at that point.
Oh, damn. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it is cool.
Yeah. Could you explain the trends on it? I know a lot of people, I've had many people on the podcast as well, with M&M, Rossler transmissions, Pro Torque transmissions. They have these expensive transmissions, right?
Yeah.
And, they said, oh, turbo 400s are 25 grand, 30 grand. And you said earlier you don't have that on this car, right? Currently.
Well, no, it's not a $30,000 transmission.
Right.
Like this trans, I think can get up to those pricing depending on other internals and gear sets, but this is still like a stock size main stock. It's a cast pump. It's not a billet pump. Like there's a higher level of turbo 400 that I don't need because I'm not in that horsepower range basically. But it's the best that it can be for what I need it to be. It's a Mark Mickey trans. It's got 3 speeds and good parts where it just makes laps and it doesn't fail.
Another question. Whenever, so I seen the race at Texas 2K when you were racing Brian Luna, right?
Yeah.
And you leave soft. Is that mostly for traction purposes to leave soft and then hit it all at once?
Well, yeah. So that was just my current strategy for that event.
Okay.
I wanted to. The car's been 104 60 foot, but there I think we were going like 118, 119. That's just a safe, like it was just safe. Like no matter what the track condition might have been at that time, like that power level, it would make it to the 60 foot, not spin the tire. And then I knew we had enough power in the middle to be ahead of whatever car we were running at the time, because most of the cars there, like, they went personal best in qualifying or so. So, it wasn't, if they went 690, that was pretty much all the car had at that point. Yes, they can tune it up and it could go faster. But, like, to me, like, okay, we'll put a couple tenths in, make sure we have them covered, leave soft so we're not risking spinning the tire. Because if I don't need to go 60 foot to go 660, then why risk losing a round because something was on the track that you didn't see? And it rained early that morning. Track conditions were changing. It was extended. Track conditions progressively got worse through that event. They were the best in qualifying and then got worse. Mm-hmm. So, I'm always going to put what to me is the best tune-up for that round. And I'll always be safe to the 60 foot to make sure I don't spin. Like losing the tire, spinning, like I'd rather get outran.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a way I want to go.
That's awesome to hear, honestly. What do you think about, like, every Texas 2K, well, not everyone, most Texas 2Ks, they have a rain out, because they schedule them in the mid-March, like spring break, right? Yeah. Spring break. And do you think they should change dates? Maybe plan accordingly for the next one, because that affects the car, and it affects racers. It affects, you go from wrecking to not wrecking, pretty much. Flat out say it. So
Yeah, no, it.
what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I understand from a promoter's side the difficulty of moving an event that's been established for so long over a certain time. And then the other problem with that is, like, there's so many races now. There's a big race, like, every month. So the promoters try to, like, work together so they don't overlap each other's race. So because they're all trying to get racers and spectators and things like that. And then the Texas deal, if they move it sooner, there's a chance it's going to be too cold. If they move it later, I think the rain chances just get worse.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not, and they can't move it to the other side of the calendar. Like, they only have, like, a week buffer to where they can move it and still get the same turnout that they get, because that's what time of year that race is.
Yeah.
FL2K deals with the same thing down here. It rains every year at FL2K.
It rains every day.
It does, but every year, like, one of the days at FL2K, I'm like, it's gonna rain one day. Like, it's just gonna happen.
Yeah.
But he can't, like, in 3 weeks is World Cup. If he moves it earlier, it just rains more. So it's like they're kind of locked in at these dates because it's like a historical event that's been there at those dates, and like a week doesn't really change it, so they gotta roll the dice with it. Now the safety aspect is where the race promoter needs to evaluate the situation, and I don't think any promoter has willingly put cars on the racetrack that they thought was unsafe. I would think not. I know all the race promoters, and they care about our safety as much as they care about filling the stands, for the race to be good. But at the same time, they know that we want to race, right? Like, it's catch-22. It's like the streetcar thing. If you're a racer and they're like not running because they're waiting for the track to dry, or longer than you think they should be, we'd be out there like, oh man, they should have us on the track. What are they doing? We're like, we're ready to race.
Yeah.
But then in the other, it's just, it goes both ways.
Yeah.
Like, unhappy people are going to be unhappy.
That's true. Yeah. On this Coyote engine, do you notice, or heard or seen or experienced this engine similar to other engines? Maybe K Series Honda, maybe the VR38 with the GTRs,
B58 or S58.
Like other engines similar to the Coyote?
Yeah. So if you look at like any modern engine, I would say, in a sense, if you start breaking down the components, they're all getting pretty similar. Valve train components are getting similar. The lifter follower design is pretty base in this engine. It is to like a BMW engine or a Mercedes engine kind of line. It's mainly cylinder head, right? It's airflow. Airflow is what makes an engine make a lot of horsepower in combustion chamber. If you look at the combustion chamber shape and the airflow at a cylinder head, that's what's going to make horsepower. Like I've said it ever since I started racing this. This is two K20s. This is a K50. Like, the thing runs like two. Yeah. Like if you look at like turbo sizing and horsepower output of a K series, like from a 68 to a 76 of that, like it's double. It responds like double in a sense. Now, the architecture is a little different. The piston and rod's a little different, but the head is flowing around the same amount of air, and the chamber's allowing for the same amount of leeway in spark advance. So it's going to make a similar horsepower. And the GTR engine is another good example of that. They're just less cylinders, so it's going to take more turbocharger or more stress to make that horsepower.
Right.
But at the same time, they have less rotating parts, so there's advantages and disadvantages both ways. So it's just going to be capacity. K-Series, you're going to get 2 liters, 2.2 liters, like on a D-stroke. Some guys are still running the 2.5s, so like your capacity is real low compared to a 5-liter, so you're going to have that engine's under a lot more stress than this engine is to make. At that engine at 1,500 horsepower is under the same stress as this engine's at 3,000 horsepower because I have 2 of them in a sense, and the 6-cylinder kind of translates the same way.
Man, it's crazy too on the VR30, on the VR38, on the GCR engines. They you can't sleeve them. They're just walls. Yeah. Like they don't. There's no sleeves in them.
Yeah, well, some guys sleeve them, but for the most part, they're not, or they go to like a billet block.
Right.
With sleeves. I think they found that the stock block was just as good without sleeves as, at that point you just jump to the billet block kind of deal. But yeah, I think that's an aluminum spray-in liner. Yeah. Kind of like this engine or the later Coyote engines are from the factory. And yeah, that's going to be the tricky part with that is the ring, getting the ring to seal and not tear out the spray in liner on that. I think that just takes a special ring. But the sleeve just needs to hold the temperature and hold its shape. That's its only job. So if it can do that in the stock form, like that's great.
Yeah. This might sound cliche, but why haven't you gone to the stock block for the Coyote?
The billet block?
Yeah, the billet block. I'm sorry, the billet block. Yes.
The water, the cooling system, because like I said, I'm stuck on that. I want to drive and drag and drive this car, right?
Yeah.
If I put eventually I would like to make more horsepower, but right now the block hasn't failed. Right?
Yeah.
Like I haven't broken a block. We got to be getting close. Like every time I give it a little pat, and it's like, because like when it does break, it's gonna be magnificent. Like it's gonna probably separate in half, and then I'm afraid of a fire when that happens, or wrecking the car at 228 from oil or whatever. Because like when it does break, it's probably gonna be pretty ugly. So that honestly, that's my only concern with the block is it causing a fire or causing me to wreck the car. Other than that, like if it breaks, like I'm fine with it. Like, it doesn't owe me anything. The thing's making over 3,000 horsepower.
Yeah.
And then and again, it's progression. Like if I just stick a billet block in there, well, why did I replace a part that's not failing because this broken, part says it's better? Yeah. There's downsides to everything. There's downsides to putting a billet crank in there. That's why I stayed with a stock crank for so long.
Could you explain that? What's the downsides of the billet crank?
A billet crank can break also. Billet material is much harder, so it's less forgiving. You'll see a lot of guys break a billet crank in the burnout box. They'll zing it to the rev limiter a little too high, like free rev, and hit a shift, and the crank will break.
Damn.
The other thing is the stock crank was softer, like we were saying, so it was moving, it was flexing. Well, that was absorbing. It was moving because it was absorbing that stress.
Yeah.
So now we put in a rigid crankshaft. Well, all that stress that it was absorbing is now going somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right? It's going into the main cap. It's going into the block. Like it was like going to the billet crank was, we're on the road, the end of the road for this block at some point.
Right.
Because now like the stock part that's taking the flex is gonna be the block.
Yeah.
Or it's taking the main load of the stress. So we'll find out where that is. Hopefully we're not 20 horsepower away. Hopefully we're like 200 horsepower away. Yeah. But everyone's gonna see it because I'm gonna post it. Hopefully I don't crash the car.
Yeah.
And I'll see like, see, I knew that doesn't stop by. It broke.
And then that's when you have to like take it out the car, reveal it to the world. Like I told you, motherfucker.
Here it is. Hopefully there's a piece we'll wear it on a necklace.
Right?
Yeah, like, look
that
at
would be awesome.
This is cast aluminum right here. It finally broke.
That would be awesome. Just get a piece, sell them, make a little chain or like something.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we'll sign the pieces out.
This last race, right? That you had the reunion.
Reunion.
The white car.
Yep.
Because we spoke about it off the podcast, right?
Sure.
And I told you, do you think it would have got you if it didn't Willie, or would have been a better race? Because they were off for what, maybe 0.2 point.
0.04 was the win margin.
Damn.
So yeah, I passed the stripe 0.04, 3 seconds ahead of him.
Yeah.
So it wasn't much.
Yeah.
What? No, that was a close race. Keith Reyes, he's an awesome dude, great racer. We've known each other for a long time. We've raced back and forth now at a few different events, and his car is fast. He's like I said, he's a good racer. He's committed to the program as much as I am. We both work hard to go faster. He had the faster car all weekend. He has the faster car. World Cup last year, we were in the same class. He qualified number 1. He went 6:19 in that car.
Damn.
Yeah, so like his car has been faster than my car. Like it was never a question that my car gets compared to everyone's car. Just because it does. I don't know why, but like
it just sticks out like a sore thumb.
That it does. But yeah, like his car is and was faster than my car. That weekend he was faster than me. We went there. We just went the 399. I switched the gearing back over to quarter mile. Like we haven't run quarter mile since Texas, but like the car's sorted. We have laps on the car, so it didn't need to be tested. We went to the test day just to make a pass to make sure like everything was good with changing the gears back and everything was fine. But going into the race, I knew I had an old set of tires, and I'm like not superstitious, but very particular with my rear tires because at the speeds they'll get a bad shake to them. And the Mickey Thompson tires, sometimes you get a good set, sometimes you don't get that good of a set. Like as far as the the up and down like vibration of
Right,
it,
right,
and it really affects the car. And I had a set on the car from before sick week. I put them on the car before sick week in January, and they were on it through sick week, through Texas, through streetcar takeover,
Damn.
through the 8th mile testing twice. Like they had over 40 passes on them. Which if you talk to a lot of radio guys, they're like, yeah, they were done at 20.
Toasted.
But they were like the best set of tires I ever had on the car. And I was
yeah.
talking to Mickey about getting another set, like similar to that, you know. And then I got them, but I just didn't put them on because we were doing that 399 stuff, and I didn't want to change what I had working. And I put them on before a reunion, and we went out there, and they were, as soon as I did a burnout, I'm like, they're no good. Like I knew in the burnout box.
Damn.
Like I knew, I was like, this. I'm like, I'm gonna fight these tires all weekend.
Yeah.
Like I just knew it. So we made a couple of passes.
That's
qualifying.
crazy. Like you can tell the tires, like off the feeling is crazy.
Oh, as soon as it went into high gear in the burnout.
That's crazy, man.
As soon as it went into high gear in the burnout, I'm like, oh no, this is what I was worried about.
Damn.
And I told everyone before we went, I'm like, we're gonna fight these fucking tires all weekend. And
But what is it like? Is it the manufacturer, or is it what like?
Yeah, it's just
why do you get a different set?
It's consistency in the manufacturing, and they've been actively trying. This is kind of a known problem, and you don't notice it as much until you get a car as fast as this, to where like all that little stuff like really matters.
Yeah.
You're putting so much pressure on the sidewall of the tire that if it's not perfectly round, if the tire's wanting to bounce on the track at all, it's gonna cause weird stuff to happen.
That's crazy, man. Honestly.
And you know, so the current production tires are you know, the way they do the fabric layer is a little bit different now, I believe.
And you know what? Nobody's gonna know because they haven't gone that fast.
Right. Yeah. It's just something you don't know, and maybe it doesn't matter for your car.
Right.
Yeah. But for what we're trying to do, like everything matters.
Yeah.
Like all that little stuff matters, and then
there might be somebody like, man, I'm gonna manufacture my own tire now and just, you know.
Oh no, there's a reason why Mickey Thompson's the only one you're buying tires from. There's a reason. Like, there's a lot of good tire companies out there, but they're not as fast as these tires are. Yeah, that's for sure. So try to make a couple passes. I think we went 650 in qualifying. We were qualified third. Not that great. The class was the most stacked Extreme 28 class we've had down here. I think there was 8 cars. Or 7 cars, all capable of that, all have been faster than like 640. So like it was gonna be a fast race no matter what happened. So it's like 650. I'm like, man, I was like, I gotta change the tires. I'm like, put the old tires back on. Like I just gotta so we put the old tires back on, but they were wore out, like I was saying.
Yeah.
So then it was like we were fighting those, and at the same time, I had already ordered in another set to be there on Saturday, in case, you know, because I knew this was happening, and. So we put the next new set on Friday night. Saturday morning was the last qualifier round, right? We were still third, so we're not in the worst spot ever, but we still don't have a handle. Like we don't have a 620 pass in us yet, right? Like, so we're like, man, we're struggling for what we do. And anyone that knows a radial and a fast car, first pass on a new set of tires, they call it like scrubbing the tires. Like they need a pass or two to like get good.
Break them in.
Yeah. Right. Usually you do a big burnout, but then sometimes they're too hot. Like I wanted to like go down on the back of the strip and like launch it one time, because I'm like, oh great, we're gonna like we're probably gonna spin. Yeah. And we don't know if we're still fighting. Like we went over the car and like Jim's like, oh, check the car, like something's wrong with the car, like it's not acting right. And I'm just like, I knew, because you know, looked at all the data, looked at the car over. I'm like, the car's fine, like it's the tire, like. You know, but we're going into the last qualifier now, the new set, and it spun again on that last qualifier, and it was like, so now we're into eliminations, and it's like, I think that was the new tire pass, like, you know, and it was. So first round, the opponent was broke, so we had to buy first round. So I'm like, okay, thank God, because we haven't made a good pass yet. Yeah. You know, so we had essentially another test round. Went right down, like, okay, now we have something to build off of. But we still don't have a pass to beat Keith, because he's been getting faster every pass, and we're just now starting our weekend of getting faster in elimination round 1. Got to the finals. He had went 409 to the 8th the pass before that, which would have been like a 618, 619. Yeah. And we're like, we don't have that tune-up yet. Like, we're not there. Like, So we put in.
I need the other tires.
No, yeah, like well now like the tires come around, so I
Yeah.
have pretty good faith in the tire, and the track's coming around. It was really hot that weekend on the track. Track's coming around. We're like, all right, this thing's gonna like we need to do like 109 60 foot. We need to go 410, and our car is a little faster in the middle than his. So if we can get out, we should be able to stay out. And it went 108 60 foot. He treed me. He did good. It was a good tree. I think he went 10, and I went like mid 20s or something.
Damn.
On the light. So he got me out a little on me there. Then he went into a little wheelie where he had to pedal it, and then I shot out in front of him a little then, and we're just talking like a bumper. And then my car started coming into a wheelie because I was nervous about the front end. I left it a little looser than we should have for that pass. But we have the wheelie control pretty dialed on this car. Yeah. But it's worth four or five numbers. So it's not free wheelie control. You're still slowing the car down to get it not to wheelie, but you don't have to pedal it. We let the ECU do the work. And got into wheelie control a little bit, and then at the top of, it was the first or beginning of second, it started to spin the tire some. So then it got in the wheelie control, started spinning the tire some, and then he got back out on me, and then it might have been the top of second or by third, converter locked again, and then just started creeping and inching.
Yeah.
And like, and I saw like it started creeping like at the 8th, and I'm like, I think there's enough track. So at that point, I'm pulling the steering wheel off, gas pedals through the floorboard, and like put that edge on him at that finish line, .043 or whatever. And that was the most exciting drag race.
Barely, man.
Barely. That was the most exciting drag race I've ever been because like we swapped. He was out, I was out, he was out, and then like clipped him. So it was like a lot of stuff happened in 6 seconds.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
When I see, I was like, damn, that was like, I think that's been your best like competition race, no?
Yeah,
like right there.
That was close.
That
Like,
was really
me and him
close.
had a couple other ones. They weren't advertised as much. At Montanassy, we ran an 8th mile race that was pretty close. Me and Garrett's had a couple close races before, but that was recently that was the closest side by side. Well, that was the first time I think I've ever been side by side with someone at that low of an ET.
Yeah,
like we both went 228. Like the chutes are out and we're stopping, and like you're just looking right over at another car going 230, saying, "Don't come in my lane, I won't go in yours."
I know, right? Nah, it was awesome, man. Honestly. So, do you think he would? I mean.
Oh, I mean, we both his car was capable of beating my car at that pass, like no doubt. But that's what racing is.
Yeah.
Like you don't race on. That's why you don't race on paper, right? Like you're each, a lot of things happen in rounds quickly. Like the night started getting late. Like we ran the semis, and they're like, okay, back in the lanes in 20 minutes. We're like, he's barely back to his pit. He was waiting on the golf cart pushing back. I drove mine back because streetcar life, and we're getting ready and we're cooling the cars down, and it takes some time. There's a lot of heat and putting in a car at that speed, and a lot to turn the car around, and so now you're making tune-up decision. You're rushing to get the car ready. You need to make your next round tune-up decision. He knows he's going against me. Like he came down to beat me. Like I want to race him. I want to beat him. Like we're gonna hug at the end of the track, but when we're on the track, like.
It's going down.
Yeah, it's going down. Like that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
So all those factors come into play when you're making these decisions, and you're putting the power in it. And he was getting faster every lap. Air's getting a little better, track's getting a little better. So maybe the same pass doesn't do the same pass again because now the track's stickier in this spot, or now the air's a little better.
Yeah.
It's a lot of stuff happening real fast.
Yeah.
So like, if he didn't wheelie, would he have been closer? If the same tune-up that he had in it, the same power level, didn't wheelie, no doubt it would have been faster than that and would have been ahead of me. If he had tamed his tune-up down enough where the car didn't wheelie and just went straight down the track, maybe it wasn't fast enough. You don't know because it had less power in it.
Right.
That's why it didn't wheelie.
Right.
Right. So there's different variables involved with that question, but at the end of the day, the cars race each other and we barely got them.
Yeah. Awesome race.
Yeah, no,
awesome.
It was good.
Can you shoot your sponsors who the car's sponsored by?
Yeah, well, I mean,
you have a lot of sponsors.
But. I do, and so everyone knows too. It's not. No one gives me money to race this car. I get that a lot online too, and then my friends they get more mad about it. My girlfriend and Jim, they get more mad than I do because I just let the comments be the comments.
yeah.
But like this is my car, I built it.
Yeah.
But
With your own money.
right with my own with my own money.
Yeah.
Now fast forward race engines, like I said, we do the development work with them for their platform so they can sell to their customers and stuff, right? So number one, like they the most involvement in the car. Now, of course, working here with Motion Race Works, and as you see on the door, Rife Sensors. So, part of my job as business development manager here is to promote the brands that we work for. And right now, Rife is kind of like my baby. All the sensors have been on this car for 2 years. I've been running them forever. So, I stand behind them already. I know what they can do. So, that's why you see that on the car. Precision Turbo. We're constantly running and helping with their next gen lineup. They get a new turbo out. We put it on this car. We give them the data back, shaft speed, back pressure, all that kind of stuff, right? So
Nice.
they'll be like, hey, try this turbo. We'll put it on. We'll run it, give it back. Plasma Man, Australian company, the intercooler and intake manifold. They make awesome products.
Awesome. Yeah.
Help
Seen
out
them
with that.
around.
TBM brakes. Obviously, here we are. Like this car was built a long time ago. Actually, when I bought it, it has like one of the OG like 5-year-old set of TBM brakes
Damn.
on the back. So it is pretty cool.
Yeah.
To do that. Manly. Joe runs their piston program. So anytime we change something with a piston, they make sure that we have that to try out. And it's the guinea pig. And and like I said, it's all educated changes. So we're not trying anything that we know won't work. But sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How does that work out? Like if it doesn't work?
If it doesn't work, well, you just take it out and find out why it didn't work. Put it back, get the other one, put it back in. You're like, it was slower.
Yeah.
Or it ran the same speed or didn't do what we wanted it to do.
Back to the drawing board.
Yeah, we'll go back a half a step and then go back forward,
So, and I seen that a lot too, and that was kind of a question I didn't want to ask about, who funds the car, and
Well,
a lot of
it
people,
comes up.
yeah. But that was kind of a like more personal question to me.
No, I get it, but you asked about sponsors, and I just felt
yeah.
like just putting it out there.
Yeah.
Like no,
Because I have seen it, and they see it. They say, but that car is only fast because it's sponsored by these guys,
Sure.
But I mean, you said it loud and clear, and
No, this is just me, man. Everything I goes into this car. You can ask anyone that knows me or my girlfriend. Like this is my deal. This is what I'm into. Just what I think about every day. This is what I work on, and this is what I make money, and this is what I spend money on. And if we win a race, then that money goes right back in the car, and that helps. So so in a sense, I'm sponsored by Motion Raceworks because they sign my paychecks.
Yeah.
And then I'm sponsored by everyone that we beat. TICK, FLTK.
That's what I was gonna say.
Every dollar that we win at a race goes directly back. It's spent before we even left the racetrack. Usually the call on the way home, the next parts are ordered.
That's what I was gonna say right now. Like, but y'all are the ones that paid for this car.
So thank you, every one of y'all.
Nah, honestly, yeah, for sure. Man, that was a good one. That was great. Couple more questions. What is the future for the car? I mean, you kind of touched on it a bit.
Sure.
What is the future for you and Snot Rocket?
So we're kind of riding the wave, really. Like I don't have any deads. Like I'm always trying to get faster.
Yeah.
There's no goalpost right now. I have a few races that I want to focus on. We're running streetcar bragging rights in 2 weeks in South Carolina, and I've never ran that event. I've never ran at that track that Nate puts on. It looks like a cool event. It's a run what you run class, so streetcars in the name, but it's going to be a lot of faster kind of cars there. And then after that, probably going to go to Charlotte for Streetcar Takeover, just because I love that. It's their biggest event. There's like 20, 30,000 people there. You get to race at Z-Max on the 4 wide. So that's an awesome time. Then like the next like bigger races we're going to have to go real fast at. It's going to be like FL2K and then World Cup. And World Cup right now is a big question mark for me because I don't know what class we're going to be in.
Yeah. I heard they were going to change some rules on that as well, right?
Yeah. So Jason the classes have always been like kind of based around an ET. So he's got a tough rule book to make because he's doing import cars, domestic cars, big slick tire cars, radial cars. paired up against each other. And he's always kind of generally like, all right, Warriors should be like a 650 class, Street Fighter should be like a 7.0 class. And he tries to find the cars that are going to show up and see where they fit. So for Warriors last year, he was hoping, he knew it was a 650 class. There were some 640 cars maybe. Going into that race last year, we had only been 650, I think. Keith went 619, number one qualifier. Like, that's...
The white Mustang.
Yeah, the white Mustang.
Yeah.
That's fast for the class.
Yeah.
We were number 5 qualifier last year there. We went 6... 4, I don't think we went 40s in qualifying. The track up there is tricky because they mix the prep for slicks and radials. Keith was on a 315 because the rule set he was racing under in that race allowed him to run the bigger 315 radial. We were still on a 275. We could have been on a 315, but I wasn't tested for it, so I have no one to blame for that.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah, I don't know what he's going to do with the rule set. If they change every year, you don't know till a few months before. Maybe we'll be in Warriors. Maybe we won't be in Warriors. The problem for us is the next class up is like a 620 to 580 class.
Oh, damn.
Like full tube chassis cars, big engines, or fast imports. And like we were talking earlier, like I have no problem showing up to a race if I don't have the fastest car. Like we're gonna race, just like we were talking about with Keith the last race. Like he had the faster car than me. When it comes down to racing, I'll race anyone. But at a 620, a 580 is not a race. Like we were saying with speeds, like that is, there's no shot. Like he could probably pedal it once and still kind of be there with you. Like there's a pretty big margin there.
So why make that class like that size?
Well, it's just the rule set that's available for the cars that are available. And I don't know that we're gonna go to that class. Garrett got bumped to that class last year. What is El Camino?
Yeah. And
he didn't do so hot. So I don't know, I don't know what he's gonna do with it.
Yeah.
My fear is that we move to that class. But again, like I was saying, like we can't go that fast up there. So we'll go and we'll race. But hopefully we end up in a competitive class for sure.
Yeah. I kind of want to touch on some technical sides. It just came up right now. I seen in your videos you're running copper head gaskets.
Yep.
And can you explain the significant difference running the copper head gasket that you've seen?
Well, yeah. So it's a very old school sealing system. It's been around forever. They've been doing this style, a long, long time. Mm-hmm. And the copper's soft, so the material itself isn't really what's doing the main part of the sealing as much as the receiver groove and the O-ring. So there's an O-ring in the head that protrudes out of the head, and then there's a receiver groove in the block. And then as you clamp the head down, the O-ring goes down in the receiver groove. What the copper is being soft allows is the copper forms around that sealing. So it makes a barrier for the combustion.
Gotcha.
Because under high power and high stress, everything is moving way more than you would imagine it moving. And when you just have a gasket, you have a cylinder head, an engine block, and a gasket sandwiched between it. When it's moving around, it can leak through. So the wire and the receiver groove gives a positive engagement of a sealing ring, or some people will do a hoop. It's essentially the same thing. It's just a bigger surface. And then the copper, conforms to that to add that sealing ring.
What about the process of, as far as mounting the engine together on the heads? I seen that y'all heat the block up, mm-hmm. right? And then y'all torque it. Y'all do a initial torque.
Yeah. So.
And then y'all do a final, right?
And then a retorque.
Right.
So because this copper is soft and moves a lot, it requires a second torque cycle. So when you torque the heads down and with the receiver groove, everything kind of moves and positions itself there. And then what you want to do, typically what you do is you would run the engine until you got the operating temperature, and then you would shut it off and let it cool overnight, and then you would retorque the heads. You would loosen them up and retorque. So everything got to where it's going to be. It heated up, it expanded, it contracted. You're going to loosen it up and then retorque it to kind of like set it in there for good. The problem with this Coyote engine is all the head bolts are underneath the camshafts. So for me to put it in the car and run it to retorque it, would have to pull the cams out, pull the engine apart to retorque. So we made, being that this block still has water in the block and the heads, we made a heating stand. It's a turkey fryer, stainless steel pot with the fire underneath it. Mm-hmm. We fill it with water and have an electric water pump with AN lines, and we circulate hot water into the engine.
Damn.
So we reverse heat the engine. So we get the engine to operating temp. We're controlling the water temp.
Without turning the car on.
Well, it's in the engine room still.
Yeah.
Get the engine to temp, let everything expand, get where it needs to be, shut it off, let it cool down overnight, come back in, retorque, and then when I put it in the car, it's ready to make a lap. I don't have to do it again.
That's some fine engineering.
Yeah,
the turkey.
Yeah, that was just me and Joe. I'm not taking the engine apart, retorque the heads because it's not that easy to take apart. I was like, we're gonna have to figure some shit out.
Yeah. Hey man, whatever works, right?
Yeah, no, it works. And I've seen it before. We got the idea. People are doing it, but yeah, it works great. Yeah.
Damn, that's real. That's awesome. Yeah. And so I'm familiar with the initial and the final. We do it on the airplanes as well.
Sure.
On the mounting bolts of the whole engine.
Right.
We usually torque them to like 240 foot-pounds, and then we go with the final with 550. Boom, boom, boom.
Got it.
But yeah, that's crazy, man. That's awesome to see on the engine.
Yeah, and it's been sealing up good. Like this is it's what's considered it's a stock deck, so it's still a wet deck. Like, even though people run water, they'll weld the deck shut and then like run water lines in so that way there's no water around the combustion chamber. All the water still goes through the head and through the block.
Okay.
Where a lot of times with an engine, like at this level, they'll have the block welded fully and then the head welded and then like water just coming in from the sides to try to make so there's less movement up there. But it's pretty cool that we can just run the stock deck because the factory cooling system works the best.
Right. Slow Integra asked me to ask you why you hate Hondas.
Well, I don't hate Hondas. I hate his Honda. No, I'm just kidding. No, Pablo's my boy. And only because it gives him so much crap, man.
Yeah,
I just wanted to run good for him. That's it. I just want him to have fun, make laps, and have a good time.
Yeah. The Lunds competing with you. They're the best, if not the best tuners, right now for Ford stock ACM.
Yeah, for stock ACM. Yeah.
Where do you think? They're running what 650s, 660s right now.
Yeah, 160s.
Do you see them coming down, or like do you see them as competition when you're going to these rounds, competing when you go out to race?
Yeah, man, those guys are they're good guys. I mean, they're over here. They're just an hour north or so. They've built a very competitive car. The car is similar to this car in a lot of ways. The turbo placement and dry sump and a lot of things they do. Joe builds their engines, so I mean it's probably pretty much the same engines that's in this car. They're up against a couple hurdles which they put up for themselves because that's the business they're in, right?
Yeah.
Stock ECU tuning, and
on the stock not stock, but on the 6R80 as well.
Right, on a the 6R80 case with 2-speed. I think they run it as a 2-speed.
Yeah.
In that car, which is cool. Like what they're doing with the car is awesome. My biggest thing with them is every time we're at the track, I just want them to put an ECU in the car and a different trans. So that way, I'm like, just stop. They've gotten the last year though is they've come a long way. They were beating their head on the wall for a little bit with the car of not being able to be consistent where they would make a fast pass and then break the trans or not be good. But they won World Cup. They're competitive in Texas. If we weren't there, maybe they would have went all the way in Texas. So they got the car in a good point to where it can make laps at that 660 range, 670 range, which is cool. But to take it to the next step, it's gonna need an aftermarket ECU or more boxes. They have I think there's a lot of boxes in there doing other stuff. Because an aftermarket ECU just helps you race the car better. All the ECUs at the end of the day, they do spark and fuel and make the engine run, right? But like the data you get back and the tunability you have, with a high level aftermarket ECU, you're not going to have with the stock ECU. Now they have a lot of data loggers and things on the car, so they can get the data they need to race the car with pressures and shock sensors and things like that. So they're bridging the gap between a stock ECU and an aftermarket ECU. And they're in the business to sell tunes, so why wouldn't they run a stock ECU?
Right. I think it's a big flex though. They're on this stock ECU, like that's their how you say it. That's their
it's their handicap. Like they're like
they're like, well, we're on stock ECU, and we're going 650s.
Sure, I mean we all need a reason to say why we were slower than the next guy. I say it's because I'm heavy and I'm in drag and drive trim. That's why I'm not as fast as the LDR guy, right? Like we all have our crutch as far as why the next guy is faster than us. But at the end of the day, like they're doing that because that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's their passion, that's their love is stock ECU tuning. It's their business.
Yeah.
So why not, race a car and see how fast and break barriers and go faster with the stock ECU? Like my hat's off to them. Like I want them to do an aftermarket ECU because I know that they'll enjoy the racetrack times better But maybe they won't. You know, what they're doing with the stock ECU is really good on a lot of levels, and they're getting to innovate and invent stuff with it, and you know, so it's cool.
Yeah.
So let them do their thing.
Yeah. So you followed me back. You followed the podcast about a couple months ago, and you know, speaking to you, the King of the Coyote, right now,
Yeah.
at this time, what do you think about the podcast? What do you think about like what we're doing?
I like it. I like it a lot. I like that. You know, everyone you had on has been real. You know, you asked good questions. Everyone is pretty open. There's some trash talk, but the world needs that. We all want to trash talk, right?
Yeah.
A lot of racing is a lot of different people's egos bouncing
Yeah.
around and
That's
stuff.
true.
So you know,
That's how racing started.
Right, it's how racing started. I'm faster than you. Like
Yeah,
that's just
yeah.
how it goes. So
Yeah.
might as well have a platform to let it fly a little bit.
Yeah. I appreciate you, man. Giving your time to me. We came to Florida, guys. We made it happen. We got one more Ford guy. Well, probably a couple more. But, you know, I mean, we're right here, King of the Coyote. Simple as that, you know. Can't get any better than this, honestly. And I hope y'all enjoyed the show. I hope y'all enjoyed the podcast. We had Brett Lasala. Y'all know who we need next. That's all I got to say. Y'all know who we need next. Do you know who I need next?
No.
You don't?
I don't. I'm bad though. I don't.
Well, I kind of need I think that'd be awesome.
That'd be cool.
Cause like I said, I had a lot of Coyote guys,
Sure.
and you're the boom like top one. I'm like, damn, I gotta get that dude, man. You know, like he's on the list. He was, you know, a lot of guys from Houston, and they have the Coyotes Midnight.
Yep.
That he builds the badass 10R80s.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Manuel's awesome.
Manuel, you know, Outlaws at the S550. Boyd, another heavy hitter, Boyd. You know, there's guys, they see your car and like, damn, that car is flying, you know, that car is moving, and it's breaking records. Shout out to all those guys watching from Houston. Brian Luna, shout out to Brian Luna, man, honestly. But I need to go and get. Yeah, I heard he's a pilot. Yeah, I didn't know that. I heard he's a certified pilot.
Yeah, he flies a lot. He flew helicopters. I think a lot of his life. But yeah, their shop is up. Actually, it's on an airstrip. He's got his like little plane.
Damn, that's badass.
Yeah, like the cars in there and stuff. It's pretty cool.
I might have to go work on one of his airplanes, his helicopters. I don't know. I'm certified, so.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there you go.
Nah, but anything else you got for me? Anything?
I don't think so, man. I think we're cool.
I think we covered a bunch. We did this for 2 hours, guys. We're gonna catch our flight back in the morning. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you check out, and you're already checking them out right now. But make sure you check them out. Stay updated with the Snot Rocket. Stay updated with him at Brett Lasala on YouTube and Instagram. Do you have a TikTok or a Facebook?
Facebook, Instagram, YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all Brett Lasala under all of it comes up.
And if you're on the site, make sure you cop his merch, Real Street merch. Motion.
Yeah.
Not Real Street.
Not anymore.
Oh,
You're here, Motion.
I thought no, the merch.
Oh, my shirt says Real Street.
Yeah.
That was the shirt I made a couple years ago.
I was like, I just seen it.
It says Real. That shirt says Real Street.
Yeah.
Me and Real Street are still really tight. We're still boys.
The merch. I'm sorry. I hope there's no confusion.
Yeah. But yeah, on the site there's still a few of that shirt left. It's running out. I need to do new shirts.
Okay. So check out his merch, cop his merch. Check out Go Hard Podcast. We're all over the place. Honestly, we're on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. You can catch the audio on iTunes and Spotify. Our newest merch, gohardpodcast.bigcartel.com. I'm gonna send you a shirt.
All right.
It says Coyote is the best V8 engine ever made.
I'll wear it every day.
Damn. So Rob Shoemaker was on the podcast and he said it. So every podcast I have that has a badass quote, that's what I release.
Got it.
That's where the inspiration came from.
All right.
But
well, we'll see what quote came out of this one. I don't know.
Yeah. Nah, it's gonna be awesome. Guys, thank you so much. Peace.